Welcome back, everybody, after a little bit of technical difficulties. This time they will be edited out in post. We are back. Me, the proverbial me. I think that sounds brilliant. So, like we were saying a minute ago, and we'll be saying again, while we were offline, we got this nice little remote pair programming type plugin for for everybody set up called FluBits. Now, well, FluBits comes with a plugin for that they're IntelliJ. 14 of my projects files you can see. Can't see. It's not letting you see sub windows. Streaming sub windows. How very unfortunate. Yes, properties. Oh, well, I don't know what to do with that, but there it is. Switch over to the whole desktop view. All right. So we are using bits, and it allows us both to edit the same files at the same time, provided that you're comfortable with uploading all your source code essentially to servers. Because it requires that in order to. That's what we're doing now. So I've got this rumor that this index FTL and header FTL are different. So you've already connected to this. Have you already connected to FluBits on your end? So some couple things on the FluBits thing. This is a cool sound. I can hanging out over here, and I can say Daniel K. Lyons, come to this file. Boom. Come over here. I gotta show you something. There you are. And then there's got to be another. It says there's got to be a way to go the other direction also, but I don't know. It's like to go see what you're to spy on you, but maybe there isn't. So one thing that occurred to me while I was hanging out, doing my thing offline, was that the last video I uploaded, I guess that's noteworthy. I uploaded the last session on YouTube. It's like an hour and a half long, but it's there on the YouTubes. There's a link to it under the show here, I believe. At any rate, an hour and a half is a long time to ask someone, especially your typical YouTube viewer, to sit around and watch a YouTube video. That's almost like going to a movie theater. So I'm not going to make them do that. Later on, I plan on splitting this video at least into segments of half an hour-ish. And I'll do that by, once it gets to around 2:30 or 2:40, I will briefly bring up the splash spring, have a micro break of 8 or 10 seconds, and then we'll move on with our lives. And that's just because it gives me a really easy breaking point to find in the video where nothing important's going on and I'm not cutting someone off in the middle of a sentence. And that's all right, you know, it's a learning experience for everyone. And I hope you get herpes. Sorry, I mean the herps. Okay. It's uncanny, really. All right, so that I thought of that because we're sitting here at this episode class that we made, little UI model we made before, and it occurs to me that the episodes really probably need to be broken up into parts. And I don't know if all this information is useful on each part. I'm kind of going for not. Like, instead of this really being a whole new class, all we really need is to make this a list. Right? I think. Let's see, what do we got going on? So I hear from the internet that no one can actually hear you. Yeah, now they can't hear you. They can hear me, now they can't hear you. That's no, I think it's got to be a problem on my side, but I can't imagine what. I have reason to believe that we should be able to hear you now. I don't have reason to understand exactly why it is we could hear me earlier. Jesus.
It's just been 10 minutes of a computer with cursors moving around on it.
Thank God I have a wife who knows how to text and can hear me talking through the walls of the actual house, so she can say, I can hear you, but you're not making any noise. All right, we'll get there.
We also need to bring somebody in to do the semantic checking of finding out whether we're actually saying anything worth hearing.
All right.
Because that...
Listen, well, you're just getting greedy.
Do you have a button in that app that'll fix that? Can you turn up the meaning?
Turn up the meaning. It's over here somewhere.
Is there like a sprinkle semantic value effect that you can like in Adobe After Effects?
The weasel.
Is there like an Adobe product that adds plot to movies?
Dude, there are some people who need that shit.
There definitely are. So
I know it's not up your alley, but did you happen to watch the Hobbit movies?
I so didn't. Like, I don't know why, but I felt like with respect to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like we all had a cultural mandate that we had to watch it.
And that's
then
offensive.
When Hobbit Part 2 happened, I was like, nah, you're over your credit, buddy.
Well, it's like they crammed an enormous trilogy into little movies, and then they took a single book and tried to also make it into a trilogy. Like the first ones, The Lord of the Rings was all right, where they crammed everything in and had to skip a bunch of things because it was just too big, it was just too much into a trilogy. But then they took the smallest book out of all of them and tried to expand it to fill a vacuum into 3 movies.
So were there like a lot of stolen glances and shit? Like
no, they just made shit up.
Trees?
No, it was worse than that. They just straight up made shit up.
Oh. So Adobe does have like plot After Effects, and they're like fill in for about an hour and a half here.
Right, fill in for an entire second and third movie. Yeah, no, they created a whole new character, a whole new plot line, a whole new like major villain.
Whoa.
That does not exist in the movie. Or in the books, sorry.
The book, singular.
Yeah, right. That's anyway. Sorry, I don't even know why I brought up the Hobbit. Like, why are we talking here? What are we doing today?
I don't know. So, okay. One you made a significant change there. That's cool. I like it. I like that we didn't add a new domain model. Not that I hate domain models or anything, but I don't want this project to get too far out of hand.
Right, and that was another topic that came up to mind that is important, which is that along with, having decades between us, combined decades of development experience, to learn how to do things right. Oh, yeah.
Dude.
Sorry. All right. Oh, the undo. Squirrely. It's...
That's cool. I like it.
Anyway. Along with that, I mean, we come with all this information about how to do things right.
And that's why we're not going to do it that way.
Well, no, it's not. second bit of information is just important, and a lot of people don't necessarily well, like middle is that, you know, say with 5 or 6 years something, is that you have to gauge what right is based on investment time and the output. Like there's a certain amount, there's a point at which it's not worth it, or
Yeah.
there's a point at which you are programming as information. You're not adding tangible value to your product because the product just doesn't like this, for example. You go into all kinds of loops and how to make this really good. 6 people, 4 of which are
Yeah.
an accident, something else, right?
Well, they heard me say I was going to take my top off, and they got excited, and then
Right.
probably half an hour in, they went, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. This top is still on, and
But they had
you
me for
know,
that half hour.
hashtag nofap. You know, I mean, it's just so. Yeah, I mean, we probably should discuss what we would do if we were doing it right, but you know, this is not. I don't think that this app is why we're here. So
Nope. This app is necessary. The warm up. The pilot project, pilot episode.
it's the pilot project, yeah.
Um,
So, all right, if we were doing this right, then probably what we would do is we would sit down with a whiteboard and we would discuss everything that this app is supposed to accomplish, and we would notice that certain nouns and verbs would keep coming up. And so we would write those down on the whiteboard and go, these nouns are probably our object model, right? We would go, well, we've got a podcast, we've got episodes, now we're having parts, you know, episode 2, part 2, you know. And so each of those we would model as an object, and we would talk about the operations that each one of those things supports, right? So episode, you can add a part to an episode, or you can split an episode into parts, you know. There would be things like that. And then each of those verbs would turn into methods on those objects. And that's probably how we would proceed. We would build a very rich domain model and then code it up and wind up with something that is internally a lot more like a library that represents the whole semantics of our problem domain.
yeah.
But that's like a lot of work for a little website with a list on it. So
Right. And I think in some ways that's where we went wrong, so to speak, in our previous job and your job. Not
yeah,
necessarily wrong, but like, okay. This is again the point of where maybe you're going off into masturbation, where the point is not to represent a bicycle in Java code, right?
mm-hmm.
The point is to be able to display information bicycle, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
your rich domain model does not need a method called ride bike.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's riding a bike, so
Yeah.
you know, have to gauge, or you always have to keep the actual product making it exciting, and ever want to do with a bike, you have to actually.
Right.
Anyway.
So you're alluding to the fact that at the NRAO we have what we call the model, and it's this. I'm just inviting the listeners in on this conversation a little bit more. That the model that we have actually simulates the hardware of the antenna front end for the VLA down to like the level of chips and signal paths and things like that. So I have mixed feelings about it because since Dave left, and Dave was the principal architect of that, since he left about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. Um, since he left, the part of the model that has been problematic has actually been the part where he didn't take that as far as he wanted to. The WIDAR portion has been a lot more tricky than the front end portion, which continues to detect problems in tuning before the lower level systems do. So I've got kind of a mixed attitude towards it because we also are building this new archive now, and we
Just now.
tried to. Yeah, all right, so we've been building this new archive for over 2 years, but the project had a lot of false starts, management related false starts mostly, and over management, and over specifying and committees and stuff. But one thing that we felt we shouldn't do at the beginning was build a large domain model that completely encompasses all these systems. And now here we are, like 2 years in, we're finally sitting down to build that, and it kind of feels to me like we probably should have been doing this sooner. But at the same time, what we're building is a lot stupider than what Dave's model was like. I mean, because in the end, for an archive, it's like you say, there are users, they are customers in a sense, and what they need is a website that lists files and lets them download them. There's not really a lot of intricate computing that has to happen in there. So there aren't going to be the whole verb portion of the whiteboard thing that I was talking about is not really happening there.
Right.
It's a bunch of nouns, and in the end, a lot of the like Hibernate type stuff is going to be bypassed by things that do SQL queries to generate specific reports. So, anyway, a heavy domain model is a lot of fun, but it also is kind of inefficient to query.
Right, because that's the second, moving that down, having a heavy domain model like that with all those details. Now means you've got to save those.
Right.
And if you got to save those details, you got to put them in the database, right? And so that makes your database structure much more complicated, much deeper, many more tables, a lot more relations.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be. Of course, just a topic, but anyway,
yeah,
things can get squirrely.
Right. But the podcast thing, there's no real computation that we need to do. I mean, the splitting of the episodes is something that, the verb of that act is going to happen inside your video editing software.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen inside this.
Not something we have. Web page. Web page isn't allow put up there.
Right.
That will have already happened. It's acknowledging the fact that it. Anyway, like there are almost no verbs here at all.
Right. I mean, well, we're trying to build like a listing web page, so the verbs happened somewhere else long ago in a different book, and we're just gonna show you what happened.
All right. So let's get moving. What do we want to accomplish today? Now, one thing, I don't know if anybody's seen the web page, but it's SourBoatLife.com. See all the things and Trello. Whew. Skanks, all of us. All right. Here it is, guys. We're done, boys.
Just send the client the bill.
That's right. All right. So that's our website. You'll notice it took a little while to load in the beginning because we started it up. Heroku not have any web dynos serving this page because it hadn't had a hit in 30 minutes or an hour or whatever off. So the first hit that came through, it had to spin up a dyno to serve the traffic. And so now if we reach faster, fast.
This is a problem we could also fix with money. Like we could pay them $7 a month, and this problem would go away. So,
right.
And we might get there.
We might get
this
there.
might be worth $7. I don't know.
Right. It's a chicken and egg thing, so not long and out, spouting shit out of my mouth right now. But we don't want to get too distracted by that. The thing is important. That's what it looks like, and it looks like that because it's index page. It includes a header. Now, the header it just includes style sheets from Bootstrap, which I haven't really used, but Bootstrap is sort of gives you a whole bunch of HTML markup that you use to make it look fancy, like this Jumbotron class here on this div. Text center, it centered the text for us. We have a little container thing. It contains our Sourboat Life header, and that's the purple Jumbotron. Fancy, right? So it provides this markup for us. Now, the question came up over between shows here is whether or not we should fancy this up a bit offline. But one of the things I object to, in principle, is this: div, 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 div. Everything's a div, which is sort of philosophically not what these things are. Like this, for instance, this whole div class Jumbotron's text center container. Let me go to this thing. Summon Daniel. Boom! There we are. So we're looking at the same thing because he can't actually see my screen. So
yeah, I was there. We're good.
I mean, through the video software though, unless he's watching Twitch on a delay on another monitor or something, he can't actually see what I'm doing unless it's an IntelliJ. Although I could probably share my screen, but here's my point. Jumbotron, all this stuff should just be this.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right, because this is the conversation here is semantics of HTML, right? So what you want is your structure, the structure of the HTML, to represent what it is that you're trying to say. H1 means most important header, right?
And related to this, I didn't mean to butt in, but this document as written like this is almost useless to a screen reader, someone who's blind.
Yeah.
Useless.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what we're programming for, but if we're here and we're talking about it, we kind of might as well.
Yeah.
But there's no way for someone who can't read well or can't see at all to navigate this intelligently.
Right. So HTML has semantic markup for these kinds of situations, and almost all of the CSS frameworks out there subvert that, like right off the bat, by making everything a generic class that's is going to hang off of a div or a span, thereby ridding the user of the semantic meaning of the markup.
Right.
So I don't know much about accessibility. It's something that I'd like to know more about, but there just really aren't that many blind astronomers, so it just doesn't come up that frequently. It's kind of funny. There are tons of foreign astronomers, but we make also no effort to really do anything nice for them either. Everything's in English. But anyway, yeah. So, what do you think? Just for fun, Brian, why don't you sketch out the semantic markup of your dreams here? So
I don't know if I'm 100% qualified, but to me, well, like I said, this would just, right.
Okay.
That's
And
just
then,
that's just a
well,
header. And then from
sure.
here, if we were going to do like a 2-column layout or something like that, we could have a div or something possibly to block that out. But from there, I don't know what we would put in here. Is this would these constitute as, I don't know if these would constitute as articles
I think
necessarily, but they
I think they
might,
probably would. Yeah,
right?
they, yeah, I think they probably would. Well, and
um,
for your 2-column thing, you probably want, main here, right? And then, although that revealed a neat little problem, because that main probably should match something on the outside of the list there.
that
Um,
that happened, I think, because of this article.
oh, okay. All right. So then this is main. Yeah. So
Right.
then if you wanted to do a 2-column thing, this would be like a side, and then this would be your secondary nav. Like that's where you go and you read my parole officer's report or whatever,
Right.
secondary navigation type stuff you want to have. So yeah, I think that would be a lot more semantic,
Um,
speaking personally. And you could put something up here like, class equal episode, right? Because that adds something. I spell? I can't. Episode.
you also can't type
Get
class.
out of there. Yeah. So then, the screen scraper would have, at least a snowball's chance in hell of figuring out what is going on inside there. But I've actually never used one, so I really don't know what
Oh,
they're
they're a
like.
hoot. So we had, where I work is an international site that's a lot of attention, right? And so it's the NFB, NSB, National Something for the Blind. Um,
Mm,
anyway, they're an organization that's doing good work, but a little what they do is obnoxious because a lot of the ways they do their work, and probably this is honestly trained in by the response. I keep looking at my other monitor where I have playback window up, like so I can talk to Daniel. That's where I see his face. That's not where you see his face. If you want to see, I should look up. Hi, Daniel.
and I should look down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, Brian, what you're doing down there is bad.
No. Um. Anyway, sorry. What they've been trained into this probably, but what they end up doing is basically going to these large companies and saying, well, your web page really sucks for anybody with disabilities.
Hmm.
So should talk about this, but I in about 6 months or so sue you. That's how the conversation goes.
That's unhelpful.
um,
Well, I guess it lights a fire under your ass, which is probably
well,
good.
and
Otherwise, you'd never get around to it.
it does. Sorry, it
Oh, okay, cool.
they do add a lot of give you a lot of resources, a lot of ice, and they go through piece by piece of your site and say, okay, this is having trouble here. Then there's a lot to it, a lot to accessibility. Maybe we could spend an entire show on accessibility.
It'd be a whole show of you teaching me how accessibility works.
If I can,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
because it's
But,
not just
yeah.
the big thing, the most obvious blatant our people see. There are dozens of problems.
Well, color blindness is a big one, for
Right.
instance.
Just color contrast, age,
Yeah.
font, 2 days,
Hmm. Yeah.
color contrast, font. Is your page navigable? That's a big book, big bench. And you get to everything, because
Yeah,
no
the answer is
blind person on
no.
blind
Yeah.
person on the planet uses mouse.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
It
Have
would
one
make
plugged in.
it would make a pretty funny YouTube video, actually, if you don't mind being really mean to the disabled. Uh,
Some of them will probably not show. But second thing is screen readers. Biggest thing, I immediately have a blind person staff helping us. Um, uh, Crank up the on as fast as
wow.
point where
Wow.
nonsense. But since they can't see anything listening to the lives potential, um, they can pick out those at like 50, literally 50 times.
That's insane.
And it's just going.
Well, that's really impressive. I wish we had somebody like that on on staff for us.
Apparently, my audio is set.
It's totally your fault.
Well,
I mean,
that much. I would change the settings, but
I don't know if our listeners are aware of this, but fault finding is like a big part of the programming experience. And it's not always like malicious. In fact, it's usually not malicious, although we make it sound that way to be fun. Um, but I like to pretend that programming is something that we do in the service of truth, and you know, it's just very difficult to do programming well if you're not willing to confront the truth. And the truth is that we suck at programming, and I mean that species wide. Like, we are all bad programmers. Humans are just, we're not made to do this. Uh, we're made to, hit things with sticks until they bleed and taste good when they're roasted. Um, so, you know, there's a lot of fault finding, and that's just the way it is. I'm saying this for people who are listening. I have a friend listening who is trying to break into this career. So I'm trying to be a little bit more uplifting about it. But if you hear me constantly saying like, this is your fault, no, this is my fault, nobody is like adding it up. Well, Brian is, but that's because he comes out ahead. But the rest of us don't add it up. So anyway,
like
there is a way. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, it's something weird like that. Or maybe do pound part or
art.
yeah,
Art is the
or pound. I don't know. I'll look it up. All right.